You're listening to Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White, one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host and actual brother, Dave White. Dave, how you doing?
Thank you for asking. I'm doing pretty well. You know, I will tell you what I did last night. Well, actually, it was all of yesterday. I went to a day-long bachelorette party.
I've seen the photos.
In Salem, Massachusetts. And let me tell you something. That city is as much a shit show in the first week of November as it is all of October.
Oh, yeah, because what everybody does is they've now learned, like, you can't go there from October 1st to October 31st. So, like, let's just wait it out. But now there's this, like, extended 2-week period where it's still, like, a shit show until about Thanksgiving when everybody's, like, fully over.
Yeah, but you know what it felt like? It felt like Haunted Happenings 50% off. It's like when you go to Michael's like a week before Halloween and it's like all 75% off. It was like that. Like even the people, I'm like, this isn't your best, is it, Salem?
Oh no.
That's what I did.
So, did you go to the Satanic Temple?
Well, we did. So we actually had to meet them there later. So we got there as they were like finishing up.
Yeah.
But we had to because you have to ring the bell to get in. And I was like, well, that's kind of sad, but I get it. But
yeah, they got to take security pretty serious over there, even in Salem.
It's a nice place though. It's a beautiful building.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I mean, for me, I found out that tonight is the 34th Treehouse of Horror, and I am feeling really fucking old right now.
34.
Yeah. Treehouse of Terror 34.
God damn.
So, hey, Dave. Yeah. Who's this over here?
Well, we have a guest here with us today. We have an actor, writer, podcaster, co-host of the Horror Movie Survival Guide podcast. We have Teri Gamble. Hello, Teri. How are you? And thank you for joining us.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Dave. I love Salem. Such a weird, wonderful place. I have only been there in the summer. I've never gone for Halloween, and I think I'm grateful for that because I hear it is a hot mess.
It's hard.
It's a hot mess, I feel like, most of the time, though, because even when you go there, you're talking about the off-brand moment. Like, I've definitely felt like that experience going there to, like, some of the museums and some of the shows. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last year, there were actually, like, letters to the editor, articles in the local paper, like the Salem paper, that was basically like, please, everybody, we know you love Hocus Pocus, but the city's infrastructure literally cannot handle this many people. And so, like, they were actively discouraging people from going in October. Oh,
but people want it for their Instagram. Just go another time of year. It looks like pretty much the same.
It's going to look like that 3 months out of the year.
You can go get the weird, pictures by the museums have all the photo ops you probably really want anyway. Yeah.
It's I do like going there. I don't make it a habit of it, but like I live like 30 minutes away, so like there's really no excuse.
Oh, yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I used to live in Massachusetts, and I would take the train when I lived there. I lived in Somerville for a while.
Hey.
Yeah, Dave lives in Somerville.
Yeah. So I used to take a little jaunt.
All right.
Enjoy some spooky good times with my friends, and that little bookshop that has I forget the name of it, like stacks and stacks and stacks of books, and you go in there. I'm sure that guy's probably not there anymore, but there was a little old man. I'd walk in and I said, do you have this certain book? I forget the name of the book. And he was like, no. Like, how do you know? And it looked like, I don't know, it was like Flitwick's like shop for freaking wands and stuff like that. And he kind of had that same energy where he was just like, no, the book is not here. And I could barely see him past the stacks, but he knew exactly everything that was in that freaking bookshop. Anyway,
it's a city full of characters. It really is.
It's cool and creepy.
Yeah. Hey, so we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores, and the steady diet of utter garbage that those shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. There's no one else I enjoy chopping it up with more about trashy movies than Dave. Just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us pretty much on all the socials, searching Bring Me the Axe Horror Podcast, though we're really only active on Instagram these days mostly. You can get me at the Bring Me the Axe Pod. And Dave's that queer wolf over there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a good time. We just came off of a whole October thing, and it was a good time. I was finding new ways to sort of carry it out into November and beyond. You can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. So do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. And lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also do that on Spotify now. It's very nice. keep.
You just do it on
I
both.
know, do it on both. As a matter of fact,
or I will hex you.
You're right. He was at the Satanic Temple. He knows.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, I keep seeing that number go up. It's so nice. It's just so nice. But we're gonna continue to give you all a hard time about it. So fucking do it. Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Right.
Do
Even
it already.
Terry says so.
Give him a nice review. Come on.
So I just want to get that all out of the way right at the top of the show. So, oh boy, I'll give you a little taste of what we're gonna talk about today.
Something happened in these woods. Something that has never been explained. And it's happening again. Now.
Did you hurt yourself?
Oh, it's just a little cut.
What sort of person are you? Sensitive? Do you sense things?
The past pursues the present like a recurring dream. What began as a game ended when a young girl vanished into thin air.
That was my daughter's name.
What do you think happened to Karen?
I think she's still out there.
Karen is trying to come back.
What did you see? Not Karen outside there. Don't you understand? It's someone else.
Only Jan can help Karen. But who's going to help Jan? Betty Davis, Carol Baker, David McCallum, and Lynn Holly Johnson.
Whatever happened to my Karen could happen to you.
The Watcher in the Woods.
Oh boy, The Watcher.
That is a 5-star cast right there, and they are not going to use any of them.
Oh no!
That's my favorite line.
Untrue.
I love the line
Kyle
with Betty
Richards
Davis.
is gonna give it to us hard.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I'm definitely on board with that. So Terry, we hit you with like a list of movies to see like what you might be interested in talking about, and you picked this one.
You guys seem so bummed about that. What's that energy about, guys? Talk to me. Why are you upset?
We had this one on the list. We've had this show scheduled into like way into next year, and we had this one on the list. I think for somewhere in the summer where we originally planned to do sort of like a Disney horror double feature kind of thing with this one and The Black Hole, and we both like I mean
Something Wicked.
Oh,
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
do
do
this in
Something Wicked. And I have very unusual memories of this one because I feel like I've seen it a lot, but upon watching it this time, it occurred to me that I probably saw this when I was like 8 or 9, and like I just kind of have like faint memories about it, and it always kind of haunts me as this mysterious little picture that Disney would rather forget about. And so I think the idea of The Watcher in the Woods was way more exciting than the execution of The Watcher in the Woods.
Let me tell you something about this movie. I've seen it a shitload of times. Probably the last time I watched it was maybe 10 or so years ago, and it's familiar in a way that no other movie is familiar to me. It feel like I know it beat for beat, not the content necessarily. It just feels so familiar. Like watching it. And as we were saying before you got on here, Terry, is that you remember the kind of pre-roll trailer that Disney would run at the beginning of every movie that was sort of like they would just show all of these live action, like what became Touchstone Pictures. And these scenes, like I remember being drawn to these scenes in particular because they're the best parts of the movie that are in that trailer. But watching it again, I was like, this is the most familiar thing. It is like a movie. I swear to God, it's like I've seen it a million fucking times. Even though I'm not that familiar with it, like with the content of it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it was so weird. I'm like, this just feels so familiar.
Because it haunts you like it's supposed to, you know?
Well, maybe. It does something.
So here's a warning before we get rolling. We're basically going to talk about this movie from beginning to end, so spoilers to follow. You can find this
Nowhere.
You have to go to a video store. I had to
Basically.
go to the video store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to buy it.
Yeah. There are very good reasons why you cannot watch this movie on Disney Plus, and it has, it's just a very weird movie that they are.
I'm sure it's just some weird like rights thing. I love this movie. You guys are gonna hate on it. I can feel it. But
No, actually, that's not the problem. I actually don't hate it. There's not much to hate about it.
Yeah,
There's also not much to love about it either.
I have no intention.
confusing.
I have no intention of dunking on this movie. It's just weird. It's tonally
it's super
very
weird,
strange.
and it was like, yeah, it's super weird, and I guess that makes sense because I'm super weird. But I think it's just like it's a nice little gateway. I understand now, like watching it as an adult. I hadn't watched it in probably about the same amount of time, Dave, about 10 years ago, probably last time I saw it. It was a movie that me and one of my best like childhood friends used to rent every time I would spend the night at her grandmother's house. Her grandmother lived next door to me, and my friend lived down the street from me when we were growing up. And then when they moved away, we still would meet up at her grandparents'. Her grandmother lived in a house out near a bunch of some woods, like on the edge, like looking very much like what it looks like in this movie. And so there was something about watching this scary ass movie that looked exactly like where we were staying, and us just scaring the living daylights out of each other, like watching this movie. And so it was very seminal, and that's what has a dear place in my heart. And just getting to see Betty Davis, be creepy and ominous and wonderful. You're just like, ooh, okay. Yeah. And then later on in life being like, oh my God, like she's so good in everything. And just,
Yeah, there are times when I was watching this, when I was like, I'm like, oh, they must have lifted notes and beats from Burnt Offerings. Because
oh my God, the entire opening of this movie, the first 10 minutes of this movie feels like it is pulled directly
note for
from
note.
Burnt Offerings.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so here's some facts. The year was 1980, and some other movies that were released that year. The Children, which I just watched recently, and holy shit, I love this movie to death. Also, Fade to Black, which I also watched recently.
One of the best. We love Dennis Christopher. We've had him on Horror Movie Survival Guide. He's a very good friend of Julia's. We are obsessed with. This is a movie. That's a big movie for us. I love Fade to Black.
Fade to Black. It's
a love letter to cinema. If you haven't watched it, I implore you, listeners, please pause this and watch that, and then maybe watch Watching the Wood, or just listen to us talk about it. I feel like Fade to Black is more important in the cinema lexicon. Yeah. It's fucking amazing, and Dennis went there.
So goddamn good. I love how just it's campy, and then it's like deliberately campy. It's such a great movie.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of that psycho kind of element where you're just like, oh gosh, like he's absolutely lost it, and it's beautiful. So yeah, and that Marilyn Monroe, the girl who plays Marilyn, like in that Fade to Black, or looks like her, she's absolutely stunning. So
also Altered States, Inferno, and the original Satan's Slaves, which was remade just recently, or not.
Rough year for movies.
No, well, you know what? We've done so many movies set from 1980 that I'm kind of scraping the barrel for titles that we haven't already mentioned.
It is one of my favorite.
That
is actually probably my favorite.
I guarantee we've done of all the movies we've done, I think the most of them are set right in 1980. Yep. Cast and crew. Director is a guy named John Hoff, who's a utility director responsible for both Witch Mountain movies, plus the Legend of Hell House, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, Twins of Evil, and American Gothic, which is also campy as hell and delightful.
And Halloween 4.
No shit, I did not know this.
No, Halloween 4.
All right. Yep. Poor guy did his best with this one, but honestly, I'm not sure if anybody could really turn out a coherent picture with what he was getting.
No, this is the screenwriter's fault. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because the thing is this is not a movie.
He's a TV.
This is not a movie without merit. There's some really sweet photography, some really good scenes. It's just the script. There's something like 4 or 5 script credits.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said to you when I was watching it. I was like, this movie, everybody in this is super competent. they are doing. I mean, I'm not going to say they're doing their best, but they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. This thing falls apart because of a convoluted script, and the ending is a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, did you watch the alternate
Oh
endings?
yeah.
I did.
yeah.
There's a long story behind all that, which we'll get into.
We're gonna
eventually.
get we'll get
Okay.
we'll get to the endings because it's kind of like if anybody knows anything about this movie, it's because it has like 3 endings, and it was like
Yep.
you know. Cast, we got Lynn Holly Johnson, who I will call.
Please don't let this feeling end. That's all. Sorry, Ice Castles to me. That's why I just want to call her Ice Castles. She's the star of Ice Castles. One of my favorite.
I'm just gonna call her Lynn from here on out because that's a mouthful. Former professional figure skater turned actress, whose agent somehow turned a Golden Globe nomination for Ice Castles into a role in a movie so disastrous she nearly quit acting in.
Yeah, she never really worked much again.
And that's not this movie. We're talking about Where the Boys Are, 84. But yeah. Coming up behind that is Betty Davis, Hollywood legend who's phoning it.
I like how you put Lynn Holly Johnson above Betty.
Well, here's why.
Davis.
Lynn Holly Johnson is all over this movie, and Betty Davis is just she sort of like looks out her window ominously and sort of shows up occasionally to say like something.
Yeah, she could have done this whole thing from her hotel room. And it would have been just as good.
She is phoning it in so hard in this movie.
Yeah.
No, oh my God!
I mean, she's doing what she does. She's doing what Betty Davis did.
I think she's just
in
doing
the
her
80s.
thing. Yeah, she's just like, I will stare and be scary and scare this child a little bit and like scare the mom a little bit. And each like one of the girls has a scene where they're like, I'm scared of her. Like it's like first it's like Lynn, then it's like they go through each one of them has a moment where like I'm scared of her, and then finally they're all like, oh, I guess we should listen to this freaking ghost. Like something's up.
She's only scary because she's old, apparently.
That happens a lot. I feel like in like this era of filmmaking, you know,
never
even to this
never
day.
underestimate the fear factor of the crone.
Yep.
Yes,
but yeah, most of the movie's unfinished qualities have to do with Disney rushing the movie to release in time for her 50th anniversary in Hollywood, and so a lot of the reason that the endings shifted a lot has to do with the fact that they released the movie before the ending was even done. So there's that. And rounding it out, we got Carol Baker, who fled to Europe in the mid-'60s to outrun a Hollywood blacklist. And
fucking killed it in Italy.
Yeah, settling in Rome. She goes on to star in several Jelly, directed by Umberto.
Yeah, she's in
Umberto Lenzi.
She's in Umberto Lenzi movie. She's in
So Sweet, So
the
Perverse.
Paranoia. She's in So Sweet, So Perverse, and she's in the third one, something about ice.
The Dagger of Ice. She's also in A Quiet Place to Kill. She's in a bunch. She's in a bunch, and
she's so stunning.
She is great. And she credits that period in Italy with like reinvigorating her entire career. Because like even before, God, what's his name? Stephen Levine, Bob Levine, so, the producer who kind of locked her into the baby doll character, like escaping to Europe was like the best move she ever did, because she came back to America after that and started doing this. And
well, because the movies she made there with Umberto Lenzi are sexy is an understatement.
Yeah.
Like, they are very explicit movies, and they're good. I mean, they're good movies. But like, she finally got to break free and be like I think the character actor she wanted to be.
Yep. But yeah.
Because she's good in this too. I think she's great in that. I mean, fucking everybody's good in this. It's just
Yep.
And rest in peace, David McCallum. I was just like,
he just died.
Yes, he did in September.
Yep.
So Ducky, NCIS, one of my best friends. That's like her favorite show. I was just like, oh.
Carol Baker
what a
is still
sweetie.
alive. She's like 92 or 93 years old. She's still doing it. Good for her.
Amazing.
Like, even the composer for this is really, really good. He's the guy that did Deer Hunter and Prick Up Your Ears, which are both awesome scores.
Yeah, I got notes about that. It's a
can't
guy
remember his
named
name, but-
Stanley Meyer, who was prolific.
I mean, he did a lot of TV too, but he did some big movies. I think he did The Witches as well.
The Witches.
Really
He did
good.
scenes from Class Struggle in Beverly Hills, like a bunch of shit. Like, I mean, it wasn't like he's got a few like real noteworthy titles to his name, but like he also did a lot of fucking garbage. But at the same time, he worked with Hans Zimmer like a shitload throughout the 80s.
Oh, that's cool.
And the soundtrack here is like spooky gothic stock, but there's it's like a lot of chiming music box
Yeah,
stuff.
but I love that
But
shit. Like, that is my jam.
there is some just howling madness on the soundtrack that really kind of nails home what's going on in some parts. Like if you're like me at certain parts where you're just like, what the fuck is happening in this movie? Like all of a sudden comes this like atonal Your non-diegetic sound comes in to be like, oh, I should be scared right now. So it's absolutely, it works.
Yeah. And then you'll get some weird like lighting thing and some weird symbol or shape. You're gonna get a circle, a
You're
triangle,
gonna get a lot of lasers.
or some weird some weird lasers. Yeah.
So live action movies at Disney were not really a new thing. They'd been producing them since the 1950s. And while I would say like the bulk of them kind of lie forgotten today, they built like a massive enterprise on the back of like Kurt Russell and Haley Mills.
Yep. I was obsessed with Haley Mills as a child. My mom used to call me her little Pollyanna because I could play the glad game and find everything positive. Summer Magic, all of that. Those were my jam. And then also Fred McMurray, Happiest Millionaire, like all of those things. This is like my wheelhouse as a child because my family is a little conservative and Disney was like the safe space between that and fairy tale theater. I feel like these movies raised me. But Watcher was the scary one out of all of those. I was like, oh my gosh, this is Disney. This is terrifying after watching like those sweet Haley Mills movies.
Right.
I think that's probably true. That's true for us too. I think because there's 3 years between all three of us. So, there's a kind of an age gap. But I think these movies were probably like, well, these will satisfy everybody, maybe, at least to a certain point they did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was such a bitch about it, too, because like we would go to the video store. We went to this place in Salem called Video Paradise. And it's my parents and 3 young children at the time. And like me, I wanted action and fucking monsters and stuff. And they would be like, well, we're going to rent this. We're going to rent Candle Shoe. And I was such a fucking asshole about it. Like, I don't want to watch that. And then I'd sit down and watch it and be like, all right, fine. That was pretty good.
It's not bad.
No.
But that was like Disney's heyday with live action movies. And the problem was that era kind of ended and that audience aged out of that. And so they were like, well, how do we recapture them? And it's like, I don't know. Let's make a bunch of kind of low rent shit and try to lure them back, I guess. And put Elliot Gould in half of them for some reason.
No, the Black Hole, I believe.
Black Hole's pretty
Black
good.
Hole is the first movie that I think I ever saw in a movie theater. And I remember because Dad took me to see it with his friend and his son, who I played with occasionally. And there were parts in that movie that scared the shit out of me. And also, nobody told me it was a Disney movie, so my expectations at like 4 years old were like, hey, I'm gonna go see a movie in space, and then Anthony Perkins gets like chopped up by an evil robot, and the ship is manned by a bunch of zombies.
Yeah, that's new Disney.
That's crazy.
New Disney's gonna chop up Anthony Perkins right in front of your eyes.
But in spite of their like wild successes with live action films, because the live action movies were really where they were making the money for a little while, because like there would be like
because they didn't make any, they'd stopped making animation. Like Fox and the Hound was like the last.
Well, I mean, even through like the 50s and 60s, like it cost a lot of money to make an animated picture,
Robin Hood,
and it takes a long time to do it, and so like they were filling the gaps with like Davy Crockett movies and like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and like Treasure Island.
They don't hand animate now too. It's like that's why everything's digital now, because it takes so fucking long to do it.
And they were using their like Mouseketeers and stuff like that and stuff like that, and parlaying those guys into stars and using
it's like really like Annette Funicello is probably like the earliest example of like their like Miley Cyrus kind of experiment.
I got to meet her when I was 16.
Oh no shit.
Was it at a mall? Please tell me it was at a mall.
It was not. I was at Disneyland because I'm a Southern California native. I was there for a week because I was in a show choir competition. Yes, I lettered in show choir and drama in high school. And I happened to be wearing a Mouse Club t-shirt. And Annette and Frankie were doing a signing in the gallery, which is like right by Pirates of the Caribbean. And I happened to be there that day and got to meet them and got a picture with them. And one of my most prized possessions to this day. She was already, had declined quite a bit and had a stamp instead of being able to do her signature because of MS and stuff like that. But she was just as lovely as could be. And, anyway, a dream. Beach blanket Mego dream.
Stars, they hung on to that shit too. Like Tommy Kirk lasted until he was like in his early 20s, and then he was gay, and apparently that was a problem for Disney. So he was no longer going to be in their films.
I mean, if you're out, but no, I was like the amount of Disney stars that have moved on. Yep. Even the modern ones, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like Dave said, by the 70s, the company was in decline. So Walt Disney dies.
Because they had dumped a shitload of money on Epcot Center, which was not successful.
It was a failure.
Well, yeah. So Epcot was in '82, I think, and it had been in development since the late '70s. But yeah, that story is fascinating as hell because it was not supposed to be a park.
But it's all part of this.
It's supposed to be a living community. Yeah, it's supposed to be like the modern community that.
So
because it was that and these live action movies that almost sank Disney.
Yeah. So Walt dies in '66, and then his brother Roy dies in '71, and kind of took their vision with them, leaving the company in the hands of Ron Miller, who is Walt's son-in-law, who'd been he'd been kind of around since the '60s as like a producer, and but ever since then he'd been floating this idea around the company that like, we got to stop this animated stuff and focus on like adult oriented movies.
Dummy.
To which everybody in the company was like, are you fucking crazy? But then something happens. Disney passes on Star Wars, but then again, fucking everybody in Hollywood passed on Star Wars. 20th Century Fox.
It's okay. They bought it later.
They get it in the end, right?
It's the best ride ever they've ever done is Rise of the Resistance. It's literally the best
goddamn best
ever done.
When that door opens and it's just a wall of stormtroopers, I love it.
It is.
Hey, nerds. We're talking about another thing now. We're talking about.
I'm sorry, but can I just?
No, we're having a little conversation over here. You chill.
This is Disney, and this is one of
Disney, and I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, get yourself there. This is the best attraction. I like. People are like, "Oh, it's great." I'm like, no. I need to let you know, it is beyond an attraction. It is immersive. It is the best thing they have ever done at the park. And I was an annual pass holder and went all the freaking time.
I would wait 3 hours in line for it.
I would wait 10 and just be like, okay, I did that today. Bye.
Well, you could have lived at Epcot.
Yep.
You would never have to leave.
No, I'm good. I don't know. After being there that week in high school, I'd never want to spend that long a time again. It was too much. It was too much. Hidden Mickeys are everywhere. It makes you crazy after a while. Like, yeah.
But there is a weird thing that also happens because it's not just Star Wars. It's also The Exorcist. It was so The Exorcist comes out in 73, and like everyone's like, shit, we got to get into this horror game because horror is getting really big. So Disney was like, well, how can we do that? What if we blend our usual family fare with some spooky things? And I'm surprised nobody was like, I don't think that's a very good idea.
Right.
We're not known for devil worship.
Yeah, because
but they kind of are. I'm sorry, but Fantasia is fucking scary.
Yeah.
And I mean, has a big old devil in it.
Yeah, if you're a Republican in America, you think they're all worshiping the devil down there.
Well, it was like my dad. And then you also, you have, I don't know, that was scary to me, and that was like devilly to me. But there's some other stuff, like even Snow White is scary as all get out if you watch the Snow White.
To go right for horror, to like
Yeah.
try to lure that teen horror audience. And it was like,
And Pinocchio too. And honestly, Dumbo. Those are all scary movies. Those old ones. Just watch them again. They're terrifying.
Oh, sure. But I don't think they ever really.
A different kind of way.
I don't think they deliberately set out to make them scary. They just kind of happened that way.
No, they're just moralistic tales, which are inherently scary.
Yeah. No, but like things in the 70s, like the the general social vibe was shifting, and
it's not Freaky Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
So they ultimately start Touchstone Pictures as kind of like a direct result of this kind of experimental period, but that's not until the 1980s. And Disney's going to have to endure a period of seriously dark pictures before they figure out how to pull it off. So, as I said, the impetus for this was Star Wars, which Disney passed on producing. And because at the time, Hollywood sci-fi was considered shit. And then George Lucas proved everybody wrong. The Black Hole was a movie that had been kind of kicking around since the early 70s, and I thought it was really funny to find this out, but it was originally conceived as a sort of Disney's answer to the kind of disaster movie craze of the time. So
I get that.
So they were like, hey, everybody really likes the Poseidon Adventure and the Towering Inferno. What if we did that, but in space? Which I don't disagree.
Yeah, no one else
was doing it. But the sort of the road to production on the Black Hole, fascinating as hell, but we're not talking about the Black Hole. It's enough to know that it did well enough at the box office and it reviewed well enough to encourage Disney to keep on with these sort of like offbeat live action movies that eventually they lead to like Tron and Dragon Slayer and Something Wicked This Way Comes.
And these are the ones that really start to drag them down.
Yeah, because they spend way more money on them than I think they
Well,
intended
I think
to.
that the intro, that there's a sequence in Something Wicked that when the train arrives, when the circus arrives, that is, I think at the time was the most expensive scene ever shot in Hollywood.
Huh.
It was like CGI because it was like the earliest use of CGI.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it was the most expensive scene ever created. And it kind of broke the movie. And the movie sucks. But
That's another one I haven't seen in a while, but I remember
expensive.
watching it when
it's not good. And I love that is my favorite book, and the movie is just not.
Are you
Jonathan Pryce?
Jonathan Pryce is
incredible in it.
terrifying in it.
But he's the only good thing about it.
Are you biased because you like the book?
I am obsessed.
Probably.
It doesn't capture much of anything. It's like this, where it's like you're trying to do something and you're trying to rely too much on tone and sort of atmosphere, and you're not paying enough attention to a story. And so it all just kind of falls apart because you're like, well, it's visually kind of cool. I mean, Pam Grier's in it too, and she's fucking incredible in it. But otherwise, it's like, I don't really know what's happening or what I'm looking at.
They
Aside
went
from
all
a really
vibes.
expensive
They
movie.
did.
Yeah.
All vibes. I feel like this is a little bit. Yeah, I was gonna say this one is. I kept writing me like it's just vibes. They're just trying to get like.
Which I
vibes.
think is why kids were probably so drawn to it. It's probably why for us it resonated so much. Is like when you're 6 years old, it's very atmospheric. It's very tense. It's scary as hell. When you're 45 years old, you're wondering what is happening in this movie. Why are there
That's a good point.
lasers?
I think that probably has a lot to do with why I was so kind of captivated by it when we first started kind of catching wind of it, was because the closest I'd come to like horror movies at the time was like Creature Double Feature. And so like, it's like I got a taste of it. It's all I was really interested in. And when your parents were just like, we're just never going to rent you fucking Friday the 13th. This was like also like as close as you got to it. So like there's definitely a bit of that in there for me as well. But
I had already seen Friday the 13th before I saw this at my babysitter's house. I had a babysitter who was from Korea, so she did not speak perfect English. So the stuff that she let us watch scarred me. Like I remember watching like Poltergeist and all that stuff before I ever saw this movie.
Oh, any heavy metal or horror movies that entered our house went into the trash.
Yep.
So it wasn't at my house. I was at her house. And so I got away with some things before I probably should have. So
when this movie comes into the picture, everybody in the company is very, very excited because they think
the greatest Disney movie of all time is what they
God
thought.
damn.
Of all time.
I thought it was Miller who said it, but
Snow White.
Yeah, I thought it was Ron Miller who said it, but it turns out it's some other producer who worked with him who was like, this is going to be our Exorcist, which is just...
Well, they all shared it. They all shared this idea.
Which is such a strange idea to think that like these people inside the Walt Disney Company were like, we got to make our version of The Exorcist.
Which is
it's
bonkers.
So weird. Why?
It is a movie for adults based on a book for adults about demonic possession.
Yep.
Why are you trying to recreate your Exorcist?
Yeah. So what they do is they get their guy, they get John Hoff, who they had do a couple of pictures before them. And I got to tell you, I love Witch Mountain. Both of them. The second one's...
Those are so
the
fun.
The second one's a little ridiculous, but it's got... It's got Betty Davis and... Oh, shit. What is his name? He's the...
Well, Christopher Lee is in it. And what's his face from...
and the
I love Christopher Lee.
The guy with the
coffin in Burnt Offerings.
In the Heat of the Night. Yeah. I can't remember. Is it Jonathan something? I can't remember.
We talked about him.
In the Heat of the Night.
We talked about him a shitload with Sam. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll look him up. So they pumped him up and they're like, horror movie. And so he starts to make a horror movie and they're like, whoa, what are you doing? And so everybody, including Ron Miller, are like trying to pull him back and get, because they don't want something that's going to be beyond a PG. You know, there was no PG.
Do you think he was just like, but you said you wanted the thing. I was making you the thing. I was doing the thing you wanted. Yes. You said horror. I was doing
that's
horror.
my mental image of this is he was just like confused, like, what are we doing here?
Like you said Exorcist.
Yeah.
But for kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So yeah, but like all of this producer meddling is all on screen. Like you can definitely see it. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Tonally, it's very strange. At times, it feels like
Yeah.
a dour Hammer horror movie, and other times, it feels
Mhm.
distinctly Disney. And I think a lot of that has to do with Lynn Johnson because, like, everybody else seems to know what kind of movie they're in, but her delivery of
Yeah.
everything is like she is acting in
I'm gonna
a
be
way
honest.
different movie.
I'll be honest, Lynn Holly Johnson is kind of the weak link in this movie.
She is, and I feel so
She's
bad
not a
because I
great
love
actor.
her. I love her in Ice Castle so much because I guess that's probably the closest character to her real life at playing an ice skater and going through all that
Yeah.
stuff. But her like yelling in scenes where I was like, "Why are you screaming right now at the top of your lungs?" There's
And
no
she is
need.
so-
It's
she's
so
so-
strange. It's very disjointed, and like she seems like upset the whole time. And I was like, "Why are you upset before you even know what's going on?" I don't know. There's
Oh
a
my
lot
God.
of that.
Yeah, because there are moments.
But in
Yeah.
a very Midwestern way. Like she's so like corn-fed middle America. Like I know why they chose her, probably because of
Yeah.
that and Ice Castles. But like,
Well,
you know,
Diane Lane was the original, was originally cast as Jan.
Oh,
Yeah, and I don't.
see,
and she can act her face
Yeah,
off.
I have-
like
She-
she's
even Diane Lane
amazing.
wouldn't have saved this one though.
Probably not, but you would have at least, I think there would have been a different kind of groundedness to those scenes that's really missing in some of those moments where it's like you're pairing her with like these veteran actors,
Mhm.
you know, that are just like phenomenal. These like, you know, the grown up adults who did something wrong when they were young and not wanting to be confronted. And she's like the most annoying. I was like, you're never going to get them to give you any information, lady, when you're just like screaming at them like
Most
this.
of
It's
her
so
time
weird.
on screen is her yelling, "We have to help Karen," with that like that
Yes.
Chicago accent, and then
Mhm.
like some English person just kind of going, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, get away from here, girl.
Yeah, which makes it feel like a Hammer in that moment, but then you're like,
Mhm.
you cut to her and it feels like Footloose or something. It's
But
very
even little
strange.
Lindsay Wallace, like she's killing it too. Like I mean, she's really just kind of
Lindsay Wallace.
she's kind of the weaker part of the
Yep.
movie.
Yeah, younger sister
Get her back,
younger
I
sister
guess.
Ellie is played by Kyle Richards, who played Lindsay Wallace.
I mean, she's just Lindsay Wallace in my notes.
We love Kyle Richards. She's not. She's Real Housewives in my
Well,
notes because she's a Real Housewives icon and
is
legend.
it her or is it Kim Richards, or are they both on it? Because I don't watch that stuff.
They're both been
Oh.
on it, and Kyle Richards also was in a movie with one of my my good friends, Jernez Corchado, which was like a Christmas movie that was like Christmas, Real Housewives of Christmas or whatever. Anyway, I love Christmas movies, just so you guys know.
Don't
Along
you-
with
I am a huge fan of. I love a Hallmark movie. I
That's
love
what
a
I'm talking
Christmas
about.
Movie.
And I love the crossover because so many of our
Mhm.
wonderful horror stars are in those shitty, wonderful Christmas movies.
I mean,
And
how many
it's-
horror movies and Christmas movies has Michael Verratti written?
a lot. And I love it. He's
Mhm.
always working on more. And I always
Yeah.
am bothering him about it because I love to like be like, okay, what else? I'm trying to angle in. I gotta play, you know, Lacey Chabert's like best friend or my friend Autumn Reeser, who was one of my classmates from UCLA. I gotta be one of her, like, you know, I was like, girl, I gotta be one of your best friends. Let me know. Get me in there. Give me that Hallmark money.
God, you don't stop believing. You're gonna get there.
I believe in myself. I think it's going to
Mhm.
happen like probably next
Yep.
year.
So it is hard to imagine a time when studios did this, since it's so uncommon these days. But back in the day before VCRs made this entire notion obsolete, Disney used to re-release their classic big deal pictures periodically, and they'd still do solid.
From the vault.
Yeah, and they'd still do solid box office. So they planned to put Mary Poppins back in theaters in 1981, but this movie got pulled from its initial theatrical run for reshoots for the endings because people were just like, "What the fuck is happening here?"
Yeah, and then they spent $1 million, and it still doesn't make any fucking sense. They actually took out the part that kind of explains it.
So to fill the gap, they took Mary Poppins and they moved it up a year to sort of like take over. And I definitely remember Mom taking me to see Mary Poppins when it was in the theater. Yeah.
Aww.
Yep. So
It could have been
I
this.
love
You
Mary
missed your chance.
Poppins. Mary Poppins is also one of my favorite crossovers because of Elsa Lancaster as Katie Nana, Bride of Frankenstein, one of my favorite people. And I played Katie Nana in a play once, one of my first plays as a child. So I always just felt a kinship to her. I love that. So yeah, we love Mary.
So this is an adaptation of a novel by an author named Florence Engel Randall, which doesn't sound like it makes that much more sense than the movie does. I did a little research on that, and it seems like everybody's reaction to it was also, "What?
Huh?
Well, did you read any of the reviews for this when it came out? Because this was pretty much universally panned both times it came out. It was a little bit. The second reception was a little.
No, I read a lot of the only reviews of it that I read was just when I was like looking shit up on like Letterboxd, and I'm like, all of my friends love this movie. Like, what is happening right now?
So
because it was a gateway drug. Because that's what I'm telling you. Like, I'm like watching it. Like you talked about, it's all the vibes. It's like it literally terrified us. Like if you blindfolded one of your friends, you tried to recreate a seance. It has all those things that like of playing a game of Ouija. If you didn't have friends to do that with, you could put on this movie and feel those same kind of like shivers. And especially because the little kids were, and also because the little kids were the one getting the messages and the parents didn't believe them. It's that thing of like, parents don't understand. You feel that connection of like, I need the parents to listen. They're not freaking listening. Like, so good.
So noted curmudgeon Vincent Canby from New York Times. So he was probably the most savage with it. And here's an excerpt from his. It says, "The talents are still there, but it's as if they've been placed under a spell of fearful silliness. I challenge even the most indulgent fan to give a coherent translation of what passes for an explanation at the end. And here comes the shadiest, bitchiest part. But the woods, the lawns, the fields, and the houses are, however, splendid." Oh, come on.
That's Canby, though. He's such an asshole.
She said your sets are pretty.
Yeah.
That's
it's basically like, look, this movie fucking sucks, but it's really nice to look at. Which, honestly, coming away from it, I was like, well, the architecture was nice.
Yep.
wow.
But it really does suffer because it's like, who is this movie for? It's maybe a little too spooky for kids, younger kids. It's for teenagers. It's like it has YA appeal, but they don't spend enough time on any of that to develop those characters. And for adults, there's fuck all to look at. Like it's confusing. Yeah. So it's like you're missing all of your audiences because you're trying to appeal to all of them, and it just does not work.
That happens.
And the story is confusing as hell.
Lastly, the movie was remade in 2017 for Lifetime, directed by Melissa Joan Hart and starring Angelica Houston. I have not seen it.
Nor have I. I probably should have for this. Houston. I love all of those people, but I'm thinking of who's reviving it and all that stuff too. Melissa Joan Hart, Sabrina Teenage Witch and all that kind of stuff or whatever too, right? So it's like, I don't know. There's something about this zeitgeist of The Watch from the Woods that was very witchy, and I feel like between like Fern Gully, between like there's certain touchstones of like young spooky people who are spooky now who love these movies when we were kids. These were the gateway drugs to our future witch lives.
Yep.
But even you can't the other one's not available either, which makes sense. I mean, it's a TV movie; those tend to be harder to find, but it's not that old. Yeah. So
there's got to be like a streaming service that has all of that stuff.
Maybe.
But let's
depends on the rights.
Let's get into it. Let's get down to it.
Okay.
Right. So the film opens on misty footage of a forest as the Curtis family is accompanied by a real estate agent in search for a home to spend their summer, or are they looking for just a place to move?
Unclear.
Because it sounds like they want it for the summer, which is like the setup is just like Burnt Offerings, where they're like, he's like, "Are you sure it's not $1,000 a month? It's $1,000 for the whole summer."
Yeah, it has like the Sentinel and Burnt Offerings vibes.
Yeah, because they do the same exact thing in Burnt Offerings, where the Eagle was like $900 for the entire season,
and she's like, "I think $700 is perfectly reasonable."
That's right. Yep. So as the car drives down the winding path to the house, we get some Watcher in the Woods POV Steadicam material as it tracks the car through the woods. And so, like most of these English Gothic horrors, they come upon an ivy-covered home with a price tag that's too good to be true.
Yes.
And that
Love it.
And we learn that the place is owned by an elderly woman named Mrs. Aylwood, who has no family and needs the income. She lives in a cottage off to the side of the house. And as we begin, we have the Curtis family as such, mother and father, respectively, Helen and Paul, played by Carol Baker, and the man from U.N.C.L.E., David McCallum.
Or Ducky.
Yeah, Ducky.
And they have two daughters, Jan and Ellie, played by Lynn Johnson, and appearing in her second Bring Me the Axe episode in a row, Kyle Richards, who played Lindsay Wallace in Halloween.
Yeah, we're on a real hot Kyle Richards.
I know.
That's
wild.
We
just got to plug in the next one just to make sure we get her in there.
Nope. We don't.
Yep.
Oh, come on. She's fabulous.
So while touring the house, Father Paul sits down at the piano, bangs out some bluesy melodies to the horror of the real estate agent who thought he was an opera composer.
Yeah. I thought he was a serious musician. It's like, bitch, he is playing jazz, not like blowing into a fucking old jug. What are you talking about?
She's like, we don't approve of that jazz music here.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, so
What is that?
What's up like an English horror movie of the period without some judgmental comments?
Seriously.
They all
All
have
of
it.
them.
You have to have that character. That to this day, I feel like there's always somebody who's like,
Yeah, it's like
no.
Ava Gardner in The Sentinel. It's just, oh, I thought you were an actor.
Commercials. I thought you said you were an actor. Damn.
Burn.
So Jan is upstairs looking out the window, spots a strange blue glow in the forest right before the window cracks in a triangle pattern where her hand touches the pane. And
she gets
cut. And I don't know.
She's
I don't know
bleeding.
what it is about that, but like even every time I see it, I'm like, ooh, like because I can like feel it.
You can imagine.
I can feel it. Like I know what that feels like. And then Mrs. Aylwood assails her with questions about. She comes in and she's like, "Are you hurt? Did you cut yourself?" And then she's like, "What sort of person are you?"
Are you adventurous?
Sort of person
Are you
are
kind? Are you kind? Do you sense things?
Are you sensitive?
Oh yeah,
She's like, I'm gonna give you the most fucking Betty Davis performance you're ever gonna get. But let me tell you this: whoever styled Betty Davis should be brought up on war.
Oh my God! Because only like a few years earlier, she's got that sweet little bob in Burnt Offerings, and in this one, she is like coming apart.
Here's a question: is it a wig? No, and it's dry as fuck. But at the end,
she's giving Hermit. Yeah, she's giving Hermit.
I guess they're probably trying to make her look like a little more haggard, but like she's clearly a beautiful woman, and I don't know if they're trying to make her not look that way, but like she has got on pounds of foundation. Her hair looks like it is just ratted. It is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I don't know, resolution wise. I mean, I was watching it on Blu-ray, so I don't know what it looked like on the cinema, like, OG style. Do you know what I mean? I feel like right now sometimes it is harder when you see some of those older films.
We talk about that a bit
on our modern resolution.
Yeah, in recent episodes, because like everything we're reviewing is just like all the modern formats, and in a lot of cases, particularly these like movies of this period, the UHD treatment is doing them no favors, right?
Nope.
Because she is.
It's pretty bad.
Is covered in like pancake powder. She's like John Carradine in The Sentinel.
Yeah.
Yep. So we next learn that Mrs. Aylwood likely allowed the Curtises to live there because Jan looks like her daughter, who was lost many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And as they pull away, Mrs. Aylwood addresses the forest. She's like, "She's going to stay here. Is that what you wanted?" Like.
Who are you talking to?
I love that. Well, we see the little blue light, so we get that it's some sort of lights or some sort of entity. I was like, ooh, she's talking to Ghost. Cool.
I think that's the problem with this movie is they never, ever decide what is the supernatural element of this movie. Because is it ghosts? Is it aliens? Is it all of them? Is it none of them?
Yeah, well, when we
Who
get
cares?
to the end,
Doesn't really matter.
When we get to the end, they very clearly did like determine what the force is because like it's pretty cool, but it is up to that point entirely nebulous, and they never ever pull the curtain back at least a little bit to sort of give you a taste, because like for the most part it's just a blue laser that shoots stuff.
Yeah. And then they're going to give you at the end an explanation that asks more questions than it does answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and like, I guess it's just, you do never get really clear rules of what the entities are, right? And what's happening. That's true.
Yeah.
Like with the mirror stuff, and like, it's like, okay, we're going to get voices, we're going to get people talking through people. We're going to get,
but
things
it
that
is
look like
Karen,
apparitions, but it's not
Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah.
So as the Curtises move in, Jan moves a big ass gilded mirror, which does not reflect her, which I think is actually a pretty cool little set piece.
And then David McCallum says, "Oh, you know how old mirrors are.
They're always
What
breaking.
do you mean how old mirrors are? With trapping the spirits of unsuspecting young women?
Yeah.
Is that how they are? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?"
because
Well, they have the 7 years bad luck thing that little Ellie Kyle Richards talks about, and he's like, "Oh, when I met your mother, I had a broken mirror that day." You're like, why? What?
Yeah.
What are you saying, David McCallum?
Yeah.
Brutal.
But like
Take my wife, please.
Yeah. But she does it again where she touches the mirror glass and then it breaks in that like triangle pattern again. But this time there's like a blindfolded girl like in the little triangle who's reaching out to Jan before the whole thing shatters and falls.
And she's spooky as shit. Like, it's very effective.
It is. It's ghostly. It's weird. We have up to this point, we have no idea what's going on.
Right.
So Jan tells her mom that she wasn't reflected in the mirror, beginning a series of crazy declarations throughout the movie, which everyone else just casually laughs off.
Yeah, probably because she is screaming them at everybody at all times at 11. Like, she is insistent they have to say this ghost girl in the fucking mirror. And everyone's like, I think you need to calm down, have a tea, and maybe take a nap because you're talking crazy.
Well, she's like the crazy American in the midst of like this like British, like pastoral scene, right? Is like kind of how they've cast her on that. I feel like it's a little bit like, oh, teenagers, right? They're wacky. They think things are happening around them, but
because the only one who really believes her is her sexy boyfriend.
Yep.
But he kind of almost doesn't either. He was very doubtful as well. He's more pragmatic than she'll ever be. Yeah.
Well, thank fucking God.
There does come to a point at the carnival where he's like, you sound insane right now. Yeah. So that night, Jan watches Mrs. Aylwood going out to the forest by lantern light.
Yeah, guided by hurricane lantern alone.
Oh, it's awesome, though. It's such a cool little shot. Yeah. So much of this movie looks like the cover of like doom metal records.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, actually.
Who's the guy who
just
did
sweet
all the
t-shirts, fucking, I want like a t-shirt of all of them.
The guy who did the paintings for the one sheets for like Conan the Barbarian. What was his name? It's like that kind of
Frazetta
style. I can't. Is it? Yes.
Yeah, like this picture right here. This could be a band called Catholic Guilt.
I love it.
What you can't see in this picture, though, is you can't see Kyle Richards' like sweet, like astronaut ice cream jacket that she has. It's like big silver puffy jacket. Yeah. It's great. I loved it.
She's wonderful. Yeah. Poor Lynn Holly. She really I really feel like the other two looking at that picture, I was like, we're giving so much more.
Yeah.
Kyle was even more grounded and just was like, creepy.
Yeah, Lynn's giving you Midwest. That's what she's giving. And she's got like hillbilly Midwest girl is her one speed that she's kind of got.
Yeah. And meanwhile, out in the forest is about a third of the movie's budget spent on dry ice happening there. There's so much fog in this movie. It's the best.
It's giving me the fog. Little howling, little fog. Yes.
You get that glowing. You get a little bit of glowing in the forest, so it's also glowing fog.
Yeah.
So and also Ellie is now talking in her sleep about opening the door.
Yeah, but they also have to get the puppy, and this is the moment that where it gets all.
Yeah. So in the morning we meet Mike, the movie's exceptionally handsome motorcycle racer. As Ellie,
why is it just they were just what's popular right now?
Yes. What is more 70s than motorcycles?
Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't have them talking on CB radios and shit.
Yeah.
BJ and the Bear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, at the same time, that must have been a Europe thing because whenever you watch Italian movies like Giallo, you watch Poliziotteschi.
It's not European though, because as you know, and Terry, you probably don't know, I'm a big fan of Peanuts, like Snoopy. And in the ones from the 70s, a bunch of times around late 70s, early 80s, motocross pops up for no particular reason. And it's just because it was really popular at that time. It just was a huge thing. I don't really understand it, but I just know that it was. It just shows up and shit.
Yeah.
And it feels so fucking 70s.
It does. It's awesome. I'll give them that, but it wears the era on its sleeve. Mm-hmm. So as mentioned, Ellie picks out a puppy at a farm, and then she goes into some kind of a trance and traces the word Nirak on the dust of a window, declaring that it's the dog's name. But
let's be honest. You can only see one.
I know. I know. On the other side of the window, we see that it's just Karen spelled backwards.
It's my favorite thing. That is how I name almost all of my D&D characters. People are always like, wow, that name sounds so cool. I had played a guy named Eoj. It's just Joe backwards. I still do that to this day. I love it.
It works. I mean,
Narek would be a great D&D character name. That's hilarious.
Put that one in your pocket. Save it for later.
Yeah, done.
Yep. And so Jan, for some reason, is disturbed by this. And then Mike's mom is shocked upon seeing the word Karen spelled on the window.
Yeah, you'd think Mike would be a little bit more believing since his mom is suspicious as hell from the moment they meet.
Yeah.
She seems like she's terrified of everything and has seen a ghost her whole life, this woman.
Okay, but also not a ghost, but maybe it is a ghost. Who's to say, really?
Who knows? Who knows? But she's haunted either way.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
She's the most British-looking woman I've ever seen.
The guy playing Tom, actually, all of them are. John Keller
they all
and
are.
Tom Colley.
They're great.
Are as British as they come.
It's one of my favorite things. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Just
I have a
takes me
note
back.
that just says, this movie is 80% intense, troubled stares and pearl clutching. And then the note right underneath it says, the music is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Aww.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So later on, Jan watches Ellie run off into the forest. Unbeknownst to Jan, there's also a creepy dude in a trench coat lurking about. And Jan follows her into the woods while Mrs. Aylwood watches from behind a wrought iron fence.
I mean, you'd think Mrs. Aylwood, I don't know, might intervene when there's a strange man lurking about the woods, but she's fine.
No, she knows who it is, though, and so she wants to see what the kids dredge up, because it sounds like they're actually hearing more than she can. I'm guessing she's heard some voices, too, but now that she's channeling through these children and using them as pawns to try to get her daughter back, because she knows in her heart and her soul of souls that Karen is not dead. She needs our help and wants to return.
Yep.
Listen, your version of this movie is more coherent than the actual movie.
Well, that's what I saw. That's what it seemed like she was saying, you know? So,
Yeah. But again, Betty Davis looking haunted from behind a wrought iron fence. Yeah.
Yes.
Hell of a shot. Again, doom metal.
Giving me so many spooky vibes. Yeah, it's great. It's vibes, picture.
The movie feels like a Halloween episode of Murder, She Wrote. Like it feels like it has such like made for TV movie vibes where it's like it was written in a real hurry. So it's very kind of vague and non-specific, but everyone's doing their best.
You know what it is it's like an Amicus movie where they wanted to do Hammer, but they couldn't get all of the usual people. So they're just like, fuck it, write a story like a Hammer movie, and we'll just fill it in with whoever we can get. Like,
yeah, they spent all their money on Peter Cushing, so they didn't have anyone to write the script.
Yeah. So Jan searches for Ellie in the woods and ends up struck by a blue beam while investigating a strange flash by the water.
Lasers.
Yep. Before falling in, she sees a ring of blue light. And then in comes, also, she falls into the water. She gets stuck like on a tree branch.
This part's actually pretty cool. Like because it at a certain point, it looks like she's under, and she probably is under like a sheet of glass.
Right, because the bubbles aren't fully surfacing. It's either she's under a sheet of glass or she's like submerged in like KY jelly or something. It's such.
But whatever it is, it looks really cool.
It's terrifying. Yeah.
In comes Mrs. Aylwood with a stick to push Ellie under while shouting in that recognizable Betty Davis manner.
Yes.
Yep.
It looks like she's murdering her, you guys. It looks like she's fully murdering her, and it's so scary. You're like, oh my God, Betty Davis is about to kill this kid. And you're like, nope, she was pushing her down to get her unhooked from the branches. Yep. She was actually saving the poor girl's life, but it looked so scary.
Listen to our Burnt Offerings episode for excellent Betty Davis impressions.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would like to hear some now, please. Give it to me.
We got to get Sam Pancake on the show to do it.
Oh my God, I love Sam. Oh, so good.
Yep, he was our guest for Burnt Offerings.
Oh, he's wonderful.
So it turns out that Jan was just stuck under a fallen tree. Mrs. Aylwood was pushing her down.
Let's be honest, she could have gotten herself out of that.
I don't know. She was panicking.
She wasn't really
I think she panicked. I think that's one of those things. You'd only need, 2 inches of water? Like, it's like if you freak out and you're underwater.
This feels like when Annie Brackett gets her legs stuck in getting out of the window. It's like, bitch, you could have gotten your leg out of there. You're just not really trying that hard.
So but then they do that, like they do this smash cut thing a bunch throughout this movie, and this is one of the examples of it where we go from this like panicked moment straight to a like extreme close up on Lindsay Wallace explaining like, no, she saved your life actually. And so
there's a lot of hard cuts where they're like, well, how do we transition from here to here? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just go.
As Jan recovers in Mrs. Aylwood's cottage, we find out that her daughter's name was Karen, and Jan explains that she's seen Karen in visions.
Yep.
And so now we get to the story Karen's disappearance in flashback. So this is like, I think it's 30 years prior.
It's 30 years ago, yeah.
And apparently Betty Davis insisted on playing the young version of herself in this scene. And there were makeup tests shot specifically to convince her that this wasn't going to work. And to her credit, she agreed.
Oh, come on, man. You don't have to do that. Just be like, I'm the director. I say no, not I have to show you how old you look.
That's so messed up. Just let her do it. Who cares? It's before we had Irishman technology, right? So it's like...
I mean, to be fair, she was like 75 years old or something.
I get it.
But still, you could have just been like, no, we're going to do something else. Don't worry about it. But here's what I don't understand about this ritual they're doing, because this is another part that is extremely vague, where it's like, all right, so there are 3 of them, but they're like teenagers. They're like 18 or something, like 16, 18, something like that.
Right.
And like, why are they playing in the woods together like a bunch of 10-year-olds would?
Because there's no TV.
That's true, because it's
like 1950.
1950 in rural England. What else?
They're essentially like, I mean, that's the thing. And so they're also, it's also not just that they're playing, it's a secret society that they've made up. So that's feels very
other
like,
question that is like, what is this? Because it has a real kind of satanic ritual vibe to it, but it's like, what are you doing? And there's only 3 of you. This club does not look cool at all, by the way. And so then, like, the worst of them, the fucking stodgiest, stuffiest of them, like, runs through this. I don't know what this kind of what do you call that? Like, his ritual, his kind of rite of initiation.
It's like the fear test. He makes her go, like, he's like, it's like Fear Factor, and also she's new, and so I think it's that strange thing too of like, I feel like there's a little bit different. I don't know. In British culture versus like American culture of like hazing, and like allowing friends into your friend group. That's a little different, I feel like, than even we have that kind of here too, but not to the effect of like bullying in Britain is a different sport than it is in America. Just straight up, just culturally speaking.
And this is the 50s version of it.
Yeah. And I think that's part of why it was so kind of brutal. It's like, okay, if you want to be in our friend group and you're an outsider, this is what you need to do.
Because it's like weirdly intense.
It's very intense. It's very, very intense.
They burned the church down.
Well, they didn't do it.
Bad.
It's lightning.
It's lasers.
So,
or was it? Was it perhaps lasers? Was it perhaps a ghost? Who knows?
Really? Space lasers.
Yeah. I'm not there. I don't know.
Yeah. So the important part of the story is that there was an eclipse going on when Karen vanished.
Oh, right. Forgot that part too.
Yep. You guys jumped way ahead.
And that's relevant. How?
We can go back.
No, we're doing great.
Look, I'm just here for
we skipped, all the premonitions and there's a lot of little things that happen on the way.
So what it's about, Mrs. Aylwood runs to the nearby church ruin. She hears the bell, sees struck by a blue laser, and as children run from the place in panic while the church catches fire. And now Mrs. Aylwood thinks that her daughter is still out in the woods somewhere. I think that line was in the trailer. But cut to exciting dirt bike action.
All right, here's my thing about this. They are cheering for Mike because Mike is a hot motocross rider. They are cheering for Mike like they have known him forever. They have known him for 2 fucking days.
Well, you know what it is? It's like you go to a sporting event and you have no idea what's going on. You don't know any of the teams.
You just get caught up in the moment.
You just pick a team, or you go with like whoever you know. And they've known him for the longest out of all of the bikers, ostensibly. And so they're just like, fuck it, we're gonna cheer for Mike. I mean, I would do that. Because
you go there and yell. I've done it. My ex-boyfriend Mike was a supercross road. I used to go out there and be like, that's what you do. You just go there and cheer. You pick your guy and watch him go around the circle or on the track and cheer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She goes to catch a closer look at the race when Ellie falls into another trance and then hurriedly calls her over just in time for one of the bikes to fly wildly out of control and burst into flames where Jan was just standing.
The trance that she attributes to the dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Narek told me. I was like, okay, kid. Okay,
yeah, Son of Sam said the same thing.
Sure. Well, I just was like, is he talking in the back of your throat, little Danny? Like, what's going on? Like, it's just like, okay. Mm-hmm.
And like, why are they talking to her now? And
that's the thing that's so weird is like, it's like both the sisters are getting visited, but it felt like at first it was just going to be Jan.
Yeah, because later on it's like, well, she's the only one who can save them. And it's like, well, I don't know. It seems like Lindsay Wallace is helping out too. I mean,
she's doing a lot of the work actually. Yeah. But The Shining was also 1980, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
this also has a person channeling voices and writing backwards.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. 1980. I see you.
Mm-hmm.
So on the way home, Karen explains what Mrs. Aylwood told her when we learn that one of the fleeing kids from the church fire was Mike's own mother.
Mary. Yes.
Yep. And when Mike confronts her about it, she tells him that they were just larking about and that it was John Keller's idea. I love that line. We were just larking about.
Yeah, she did not go into how serious and how intense that situation really was for them.
We were larking about, and then someone disappeared forever, and the church burned down.
Yeah,
and I broke the circle and I freaked out. Whatever.
Yeah, and it's all my fault.
Yep. So now David McCallum fucks off for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he's gone. Don't need him anymore.
He's hardly in the movie, anyways. It's I don't know, weird choice because now he's gotta go. And
well, they spent a lot of money on Betty Davis, is my guess.
And they were like, "We have you for 2 days. Let's do this, and thank you so much for your time, sir.
Play a little jazz piano, and you can get the hell out of here."
So now Ellie, Jan, and Mike are on horseback, and the Watcher presumably spooks the horses, which sends them running in every direction.
Horses know. Horses know when things are evil.
Yep.
Yeah, horses know when vibes are off. Yes.
Now, here's the question this is the bigger part about this that does not make a lot of sense to me is, does this alien entity, Karen, evil spirit, does she want to kill them, or is she trying to warn? There's a lot that goes back and forth.
No, because what happens is the laser, because the horse is about to run into the street, and the laser shoots the street as the truck or lorry, if you're nasty, it tips over. When its driver is blinded by the flash, right? And I love the shot because you could see the stunt driver like going like "Wah!" as the like his arms flying all over the place as the truck like tips over. So yeah, it's trying to like keep them reasonably safe, as far as its lasers can do. And
so it's watching out for them.
Yeah,
I guess.
It's a watcher, maybe from the woods.
It is. It is in the woods, and it is watching.
Yeah.
It's the Watcher, but also I think it's trying to communicate to them and get through to them that they need help, and so it's doing everything it can to lure them to the place that it needs, and it's proving more and more difficult. There are moments where it seems like it's working, and then all of a sudden, like someone falls in the water, or like it seems like it's working, and then the dog runs away, and then it seems like it's working, and then something goes wrong each time. So
a lot of mixed messages from this Watcher in the woods. This particular Watcher.
No, because
sometimes you try to communicate with humans and it's hard.
That's true. You need a dog and Lindsay Wallace.
Yeah, but it's definitely, because as we come to find out, it's definitely well within this being's purview to protect them because it needs them to sort of get it to switch them back. So we'll get there when we get there.
It's not going to make any more sense when we get there. So,
So Jan's horse bucks her off near the ruined church, and she goes in and she sees a triangle projected onto a stone coffin, and then Karen's ghost inside. Awesome shot.
This part used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid, because this is in that pre-roll Disney trailer. Like the next few scenes that are actually really, really good are in that particular trailer. And that one scares the shit out of me.
She's projected in a coffin that's also like all burned up and shit. I love it.
It's very cool and very scary.
Yeah. And then she's chased off by that spooky overcoat dude from before.
He's like Tom Colley coming again with the serious pedo energy.
Yeah.
Well, he also is, you can't tell, he doesn't know if she's real or not, and we find out later he's like, are you a ghost? Are you a ghost lady? So
I got a lot of questions about him coming up too.
Yeah.
He seems like he's got some Arrested Development from exactly that time that girl disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now Ellie and Mike show up, and Karen is just like, I saw a ghost and I saw the triangle, and she's doing the thing where she screams, we gotta help Karen.
And everybody, she's always saying that. She's been saying that since we got here.
Yeah.
I keep trying to find a doctor, and it's not that easy out here in the country.
Now everybody is very accommodating to her crazy ass declarations, and she is seeing like wild spectral shit like everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's gotta be hard if you're that person. I can't even imagine
Well, she is also always in danger from some like vague lurking menace just everywhere. There's this creepy guy following her in the woods. There's an alien that is either trying to communicate with her and or kill her. She goes to the motocross show and the fucking motorcycle almost hits her and blows up.
Yeah, this movie is definitely testing.
It's a hard transition.
Yeah, it's crazy what she's
Being a teenager is really hard.
Yeah, and like her mom, like literally at the beginning, could have all been stopped if the mom had listened. And when her daughter was like, "The vibes are off," the mom's like, "It's cheap, let's go." So
Yep.
parents, listen to your kids.
Next thing you know, it's the Amityville Horror.
Yep. Next thing you know, it's Mrs. Allardyce in the attic.
Exactly.
Yeah. So windows break suddenly in the chapel. A pair of circular pieces of stained glass collapse on the floor, implying an eclipse if you're paying attention. But to everybody else, they should start to suspect that Jan is exhibiting symptoms of schizophrenia since she's seeing symbols everywhere and seems to be hallucinating.
Yes, Jan might
like
be
being at Disneyland.
bipolar.
It's like being at Disneyland too long and seeing all those hidden Mickeys after a while.
And you step outside the park and you're like, they're following me.
They're everywhere. Yeah.
So now at John Keller's place, crazy Tom Colley tells him that he saw Karen when he really saw Jan.
Mm-hmm.
And incidentally, the ominous exteriors set against a stormy nighttime backdrop are the same exteriors that Robert Wise used for The Haunting.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Yep. It's Hill House.
Yeah.
So inside Keller, a haunted man broods by the fire.
He really does. He
He really does. And he broods the shit out of the scene.
There's some very good haunting brooding. Yes.
Because wait, wasn't the Changeling also 1980?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because this has really heavy, like, Changeling interior vibes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everyone's trying to make that Exorcist, like you said, that spooky thing, right?
Oh, man. They're pulling all the stops.
Yeah.
So we now smash cut to a crappy monster in a carny funhouse. And Jan enters a hall of mirrors and sees Karen reflected in each of them in what is undeniably a very cool scene. Probably my favorite scene of the entire movie. It's probably, my favorite part.
It also scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Because she has this, like, pleading look on her face, and there's, like, just this row of her.
Yeah, it's that sort of, like, endless mirror, because it's, like, mirror against mirror, and it's just a row of her extending to the horizon.
This is also a trick they do the same thing in Something Wicked.
Really?
The Hall of Mirrors plays a big part of that story. And there's a very similar part in that.
We love a good Hall of Mirrors kind of scene. Those are always really scary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's to this day. I love that.
Even
and the scary like monster smash also looks like the little witch mask that little sister had been wearing, little Ellie had been wearing around back there. So you got like a little bit like, where are they? Oh, okay, they're someplace else.
Yeah.
So
That's what frustrates me about this movie is that it could have been really fucking cool. It's shot really well. Everyone's doing their best job at it, but it's like nobody bothered to write a coherent story.
So yeah, now she runs out of the place again, yelling that they have to help Karen, which is basically her entire arc.
Yeah, this is her from here on out.
We have to help her, but also because Karen was mouthing, help me, and so she can actually finally see it. That's what she's trying to say. Because before she's like, I don't know what she needs, but now
I would say she could have been a little polite about it, though. There's a lot of like telling people what she wants, demanding that they do things for her,
grabbing them by the lapels and like pulling them in close. We have to help Karen. Yeah. So
she
now,
wants it to stop. If you had voices coming at you, and you thought the only way to stop it would be to actually find out what's going on,
it's just a vague air of menace all the time.
Yeah, this is the thing is I kept putting myself in her shoes, and I'm like, I know that if this were me and I were receiving messages from the great beyond, a piece of me would be like, how the fuck do I communicate this to people in a way that doesn't get me locked up?
Oh, if it were me, I'd be like, you picked the wrong fucking guy. Look, I
got places to be.
Look, I write a podcast every day, all right? I don't have time for this. I have important things to do.
Yeah. But yes. Jan now confronts John Keller, shouting more crazy shit at him before he demands that she leaves.
A lot of me going, sure, Jan, like during this movie.
Is this the part where he like almost runs her over with his car? And she's just like riding her bike right towards him. Like, this is too much.
Yeah. So then Jan goes to Tom Colley's place in the woods.
Bad move, girl. Bad move.
I think he's the only character in the movie who is referred to by everyone else by his full name. There's always that friend, though. I'm that friend with a lot of my friends. They're like, even my friends' kids are like, Teri Gamble's coming over. Like, they use my full name quite often. I'm that friend in the friend group. From now on, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So now nobody. Yeah, the thing is, nobody calls him Tom. Nobody calls him Mr. Collie. Only Tom Collie.
And he's got real Lenny from Mice and Men vibes.
Yeah.
And like at one point he's just like, here, hold my crow while I do crazy guy stuff. And it's like, what is happening in this scene? Why is he giving this girl a bird?
When you have a bunch of taxidermy in your home and you've done it yourself.
Yeah, she needs to leave. She needs to leave immediately.
This is obviously where she's going to get the information because he's like the quote unquote kind of crazy Ralph, right? He's the one that she needs to talk to.
He's got the pieces and he's going to spill them.
Yep.
You know what it is this is Norman Bates. At the beginning of Psycho, when Marion Crane goes in and sees like all this crazy taxidermy.
Yeah, he's going to tell her what happened, then he's going to gasp and cover his mouth and then be like, oh, I shouldn't have said that to you. And that is how the movie proceeds.
Yeah. So, also, but she's also attacked by a jump scare cat.
Mm-hmm.
I love the cat. I got so excited. I have 2 black cats I adopted this summer, and I just get excited anytime I see a black cat in cinema.
I love a black cat.
Well, you should be excited all the time because they are in everything.
I know.
Yeah. And now Tom Collie is going to give her the full Torgo. He goes right up to her.
Really
he puts his hand in her face. He like touches her hair.
Are you real?
Yeah.
Are you a real girl?
All right, Tom Collie. God damn it.
Well, that's to let you know what his reality's been like. Like he's definitely probably the one it looks like he's the one who stays closest to wherever this stuff went down, right?
Yep.
He's the one who's most haunted. And he's the one I think who still believes that maybe she's out there.
I wonder if he was always like this or if this was a result of the experience.
See, I guess that was my question. Is like he seems in the flashbacks like just one of the other kids. Like there's no indication that he's developmentally delayed or has any like intellectual disability. He just like is. I think we're still assuming this traumatized him.
Yeah, it broke him.
But then when he finally does touch her, he's just like, "Oh, you're real. Whatever. You're not a ghost."
No, he's still a little like trepidatious, but he's twanged. He twanged early, and I feel bad for him.
Yeah. So now he's going to give her another flashback where we learn that they blindfolded Karen for sort of initiation ceremony. You guys went over this. They held hands around her. As soon as John Keller begins the ceremony, the church is struck by blue lights, set on fire, and then the tower bell crashes down where Karen was, but she was gone before that happened.
And there is so much going on at this point where I'm like, how can I keep any of this straight?
They're really starting to spin all the wheels. Like it's approaching the sort of the third act, right? And so elsewhere,
yeah, but I thought like maybe like I don't know. I thought it was just like because they ran away and it looked like she could have been like hit by the bell and then thrown into that casket that we've already seen with the ghosts, character like being stuck in there. Like, oh, did she fall in there? Did they like? Do you know what I mean? Like it looks like. Yeah, it looks like she fell in there. It looks like she fell in there and they just never went back. And that's why they feel like the other kids feel so guilty because they're just like, dude, we just couldn't see her. It's like,
well, he does. He says he goes back the next day. And I was like, next day? Should tell someone about this.
They were too scared.
That's what it says is we told them, we told everybody and we looked and we never found her. So, yeah.
And then they say it was a lunar eclipse. So do you know how rare that is? And it's like, well, it's not that rare. It happens twice a year.
Yeah. No, but this is the whole thing with this one is it only happens every 30 years, right?
Well, then they were talking about the thing that's not rare. They didn't say the lunar eclipse was rare. They said lunar eclipses happen all the time. They said it's the sun one, what the other one,
Solar
we just had solar eclipse. Thank you. Happens not as often.
She has the big box of glasses.
Yeah, we love those moments. That also felt very like I don't know. I just was watching Gerald's game recently, and yeah.
Well, I remember there was one
those eclipse moments
at some point in the 80s because when I
oh no, I remember it too. Yeah, because
we made those box glasses in school, and we all went outside and looked at it. So it must have been.
I was at summer camp.
87, something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. There's something we just like recently had one too here, but
Donald Trump looked directly into it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, nope.
Beautiful.
He's a very stable genius.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
But no, there is something I feel like magical in that energy. I feel like people feel with those types of events and things like that, like the mystics and stuff like that. I feel like it's a time for a reset. of some
It just
sort.
feels like one more element they're chucking into this movie. Like eventually it's like there is so much happening, so many fucking threads here, and you don't need any, like you need like it's a fucking alien. That's good enough. That's your story.
I know, but they're
Cut
keeping
all
it
this shit
ambiguous
out.
and you don't know it's an alien yet, which I kind of love actually, because I was like, oh yeah, I think maybe it was like a supernatural thing, of some sort, but not alien,
Yeah.
like
But
that's
that's why
like
you get to the end and it's like, what about all that other shit you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, because up to this point, the vibe you're left with is occult horror.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We got symbols. There's triangles everywhere. She sees like I think I might have skipped over it, but like before she sees Karen in the coffin, there's like a circle projected onto it in blue, which
Mhm.
like these are supposed to be sort of like clues to enlighten us as to what's going on, but they
It
don't
feels
really.
like Illuminati or something, right? Like they're
Yeah.
giving you like triangles, circle,
No,
like
they're
they're giving you
giving you
those like
clues to another story because that's not where these clues lead.
Yeah, that initiation ceremony is also like really like Masonic as well, like
Mhm.
blindfolded and
Mhm.
so yeah, like it's all kind of like listing in a particular direction, and then I think that's part of the problem with the ending is it just goes in an entirely different direction unless there's magical aliens. But
Yeah, like their whole
Like
point was like we're gonna reshoot this movie. They invested $1 million to reshoot this ending, and it does not explain it, and it actually explains it even less.
I think it does, but it's
In a
still
way,
like
but it's not as obvious as the other one is, or the
right
one of
because
the other ones.
the original endings don't have the voiceover that just is like, oh, by the way, this is everything that's happening right now.
Yeah, there's a huge exposition dump at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
they needed it. They definitely
Oh,
needed
yes,
it.
we
Yes.
did.
But
Yes, we did.
but I still don't mind it. I don't know. I don't feel like everything has to be like, I don't know, spelled out. I didn't mind the ambiguity in the ending and also what's happening, just because it's like that was the whole thing with these people. They're literally just like no one understands what happens. It was an unexplained phenomenon. It's a little like what's that one in the sky? Whatever, those guys that like got abducted. You know what I mean? That's like everyone's got their version of like what the hell they thought happened. None of it's really too real. It could have been an alien abduction, and that's what we find out it actually was.
That's true. I jumped us way ahead. I jumped us to the end before we're ready, though. So.
That's okay.
Yeah. So elsewhere, Mrs. Aylwood hears Ellie humming a song and invites her in to show her a music box that plays the same melody.
In
then,
the quaintest cottage you have ever seen.
It's delightful.
It's so cute. And Ellie
Like
had
his
heard it
central
from Jan.
casting did that.
Yeah. They really did. It was great.
Yeah. And so now in comes Jan, who tells Mrs. Aylwood that Tom Colley, what Tom Colley told her, while also being followed by Steadicam POV. And then Ellie goes into another trance, yelling, "Must help Karen."
And mom interrupts this one. And that is just wonderful because mom's like, okay, kids, this little old lady's got you guys screaming and in like fits. It's very Crucible all of a sudden. Like these girls are like, I don't know, like, hello, Salem. What's going on? Like, witch trials and stuff. And so mom's like, well, I guess that was the price. It was too cheap. This was too good to be true.
Too good to be
and
true.
now I get this place is haunted and the strange lady is strange. You kids were probably right. Let's get the fuck out of here. But now the kids are like, no, we are too far into this saga. We cannot leave, Mom. We are ready to stay. We got to figure out what the hell is going on with Karen. She's still out there. I don't think she's dead. Let's figure it out.
Yep. They don't get far though. Because just like in Burnt Offerings, an unseen force stops them because they're in the car. They drive away at night, and then they get stuck on the bridge. And then they're like, "Oh shit, we should probably get out of the car just in time for another blue laser."
So that's what I'm saying. Like if they hadn't got out of the car, the blue laser
died.
would have hit them. Like it's kind of like, all right, you want their help, but you're a little bit reckless about it too.
Yeah, but it's exciting because you get an exploding car out of it.
That's true.
I don't know if the blue laser was supposed to hit them. I think it's just like that was supposed to help mom gain the trust of the kids that they were going back to the right place and like stopping them from leaving that place, right?
Yeah, because it doesn't hit the car; it hits the bridge. And the car collapsing with the bridge is just kind of like, oh shit, I guess the good thing they weren't in there, because really it was just to sort of cut off their exit. You got to stay here, you got to see it through.
Yeah. So you're saying the blue lasers are stormtroopers and they don't have grade A is what I'm hearing.
I mean, it's as plausible as anything else.
It's collateral damage.
Uh-huh.
So that night, they're haunted by nightmares about helping Karen, and Ellie, again in a trance, traces "Do Again Tomorrow" on the bathroom mirror with soap. And so the next day, While looking for that set of eclipse glasses that she made, Ellie utters some phrases from her trance the night before, and Jan starts like making connections. So
and shouting about it at people.
Oh, yeah, of course. Jan calls Mike to tell him that they have to do the ritual again with the same people from 30 years before. Good thing they're all still alive in there. And Jan is very confused about what a seance is, because she says something like, when people put their hands together at a seance and they make objects move. I'm like, that's not what a seance is.
Sure, good enough. I mean, this movie's off the rails at this point.
Some Ouija board thing, right? Like, that's what it sounds like she's trying to have them do, but it's not what they're doing.
Yeah. So she talks everybody into going back to the chapel to do the thing again, and miraculously they do. And Karen has been raving like a lunatic the whole movie, and somehow everybody just goes with it.
Yeah, she's acting like a crazy person, and then they're all just like, "Ugh, fine, I guess."
But it's because they've all been freaking haunted as well. Like, hello, their guilt is the only thing that gets them there, because they know in their heart of hearts that they fucked up, and they've kept it as like their like do or die secret, but their secret has been unearthed, and they're like, well, if this girl figured all this much out, like, there's got to be some sort of truth to it. So that's why they
could ride it out for like
curiosity.
one more day, and then they're fine. The chance is passed.
Yeah.
But also, why is this the only happening now? Why has this not happened before?
I bet they've tried because they didn't have someone who could listen and help. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They need the eclipse is a kind of crucial component to it,
right?
For reasons that don't get explained, or do they? I'm pretty sure they don't.
Well. Yes.
Ish.
I was a little checked out by the end of this movie.
In the final version that we all saw that they released, Ellie explains.
Look, it's not that wild for me to not know what's going on. They had to reshoot the ending to this movie twice.
Yeah, so
and it still didn't make sense.
This part right now is where the movie's original endings break. So what ends up happening is Ellie chases Nirak the dog into the woods, and she falls into a trance again. And then we got back to the church, and Jan is blindfolded this time, plays Karen, and then they begin the ritual. And then Jan assures everyone the ritual will work this time because no one will break the cycle. Break the circle. But man alive, is she proven wrong like twice?
Because that lady is like, no, I'm gonna do it.
Mary's like, get me out of here again. I left the first time. I will do it again. I was like, girl, that's what you messed up the first time.
She has every intention of doing the same thing.
Yeah, she's terrified.
To which I say, well, then why did you come? If you didn't want to be here, why did you come?
Her guilt was so bad.
Yeah. Like, but she's ready to leave immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, girl, it was shame on us, you know, twice. Shame on you.
Yeah. And so as soon as the ritual begins, Ellie's voice comes through explaining what happened. And what we learn through extensive VO is...
Well, so then it's VO, but then she comes walking in, but her mouth isn't moving? It's just still the voiceover.
I'm going to give you this. I like that detail. It's kind of like... have you ever watched old clips of Doctor Who where...
Absolutely not.
Good God. So
this old BBC was ugly as hell.
Oh, but here's the thing: the Cybermen were.
Are you gonna say they're still ugly?
They're fucking terrifying back in the day. And
I was gonna say they're delightful, Dave. I don't know why you're so anti. I don't know. Do you not like cool, fun, weird things?
I don't like
camp?
Science fiction. I'm not a science fiction person. Do I not like camp?
You might actually like these old ones because they are delightfully
because it's
terrible.
Camp.
Yeah,
that's what I love about old sci-fi. Anyway,
like the way that the Cybermen used to appear is they were just people in like body stockings and all this kind of like metal stuff, kind of like bolted onto them. But when they would speak, the Cybermen would open their mouths, and then the voice would come through, but they would not mouth the words. Their mouths would just open, and the sound would come out. It was an eerie thing. And it's immediately what I thought of when I saw this, because Ellie walks in and she's not speaking, but we hear that kind of affected version of her voice as the alien is kind of like speaking through her. But what we learn is the Watcher is an invisible alien that switched places with Karen by mistake during the ritual. And so now she's been trapped here on Earth in the woods.
Where was the Watcher going? Just passing through?
Yeah.
I think they were probably writing on like, I feel like it's like a little bit like the Comet kind of situation or whatever, where they're like, oh, like it was supposed to be I don't know. It was supposed to be the alien writing on the comet or like through the eclipse. And it was supposed to something lined up for that night as well for them. And it was some magical thing for them.
Yeah,
Unexplained, but that's what I figured.
They were going somewhere, and
this is the reshot ending, right? This is the 81 version.
Yeah.
Yes, because so like it has there's 2 other endings, and all of them have been cut and replaced with this one. You can find them on the Anchor Bay DVD release, the movie, and you can also get them on YouTube. I'll link to them in the show notes. The original endings don't make a whole lot of sense, and they also don't include the voiceover.
I think they look better, though.
I think
like
they look
big
better.
Flying bug.
I love the bug alien.
Which I believe Vincent Canby said it looked like it was something that was stolen out of a Chinese New Year parade.
It's so awesome. It looks like a creepy dragon bat thing.
It's super cool.
And it kind of looks like, I feel like it made me think of the taxidermy that Tom was doing, because he had those little bats and all these little winged creatures were his taxidermy.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, has he been seeing the creature and like trying to recreate it somehow? And that's like where he's stuck. Do you know what I mean? Though, like maybe he saw something in that flash, and that's what he's continuing to make. So I was like, oh, this makes more sense if you see this thing, to go
it's
with
also just visually
kind of how he was
like,
doing. Yeah,
it flies in and like wraps its wings around her and sort of like totally and like wraps her up, and then it flies away. It
flies away.
I like that.
And it's cool because then we go to, and this had to be like a thing, like, okay, we're gonna do our own version of 2001 or something.
Yeah,
because we go to this like psychedelic landscape where there is a crashed UFO, and they go into the UFO.
This is where it's like, what the fuck is going on? The tone in this movie has changed so wildly by this point that it's like, this is like pure science fiction at this point.
Yeah,
but like real cheap science fiction.
But but what we see is inside the ship is Karen, who's, you know, the girl we've been seeing the whole movie, and she's trapped in some kind of like a crystal. And then Jan goes in, and she gets her, and then we cut back to the church, and there's a big like flash of light, and they're both standing in the spot where Jan was standing. It turns out that the girl has not aged a day since since she was trapped.
That's
in this ending.
Yeah. And then,
and there's someone else in the other one. It's a totally different actor.
Right, because they brought her back because they couldn't get the original. And I guess they figured, who cares? We'd never see her with a blind.
But in these endings, they also make Bette Davis looks good. Like they've styled her hair. Her makeup looks fine. Like she looks so much better in these. Like, why didn't you just let her look like that?
Because she's happy her daughter's returning. Because she's happy her daughter might be
before
back.
Her daughter returns.
Yeah, and then in another one, and I think it was the original. Or like the original released version, like the one with the alien in the spaceship, is not the one that was released. That was something that was the one that they never finished because they were trying to rush the movie off. The one that I think they did originally was the alien comes up, it grabs Jan and flies away, and then there's the flash, and she's just back with Karen. I believe that's the original theatrical ending from 1980.
Yes.
But yeah, they cut all this UFO stuff out. I don't know.
And then Jan says, he needed my image to set her free. And I said, what? Fuck are you talking about?
No, so what we instead got was basically the Blade Runner version where there's just like a voiceover going, like in case you haven't figured it out, like there's an alien and the girl's trapped.
Yes. And Fiend.
She was trapped in suspension and frozen in time.
She sure was. Except Jan was able to reach right through all of that and just grab her.
Yeah, it has this whole I have to return to my home planet. My people need me kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
E.T. Yep.
So this time they perform the ritual in concert with the eclipse, and then the strange light appears next to the entranced Ellie. This is the version that's on the disc, the one that they released in 81, and it has no alien in it. It's just this blobby light next to her. And the light surrounds Jan, and Mike rushes in to break the circle, ending the ritual. But with the ritual complete and Jan safe, Karen stands there where Jan stood, not having aged a day since her disappearance. Mrs. Aylwood wanders in for some reason, sees her daughter standing there. They hug. Fade to black. Roll credits.
She wanders in because that was her cue.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
Well,
Watch her
good,
in the woods.
That's going to lead me to my question. I'm going to ask you, Terry, how do you think this movie holds up today?
It's a little slow. But that's okay. God. Okay. How it holds up today. After talking about it with you guys for a while, I still freaking love it. No, I think it's still just vibes. If you like vibes, if you like weird like occult witchy shit, that's what I feel like this gives me a little bit. I feel like it's like a really nice gateway. Like watch The Wicker Man. Like, do you know what I mean though? Like, I don't know if you're below the ages of 10, this will scare you. You know, like this is what it's for.
Yeah, I personally I think that it's worth a watch as a weird piece of like a weird Disney curio. It's artifact.
Such an anomaly. It's a weird anomaly in the Disney lexicon. It's so strange.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a slog. But yeah, no, I think that it's fascinating. It's an antique from a weird period of like Disney history. And just the sort of broader picture of the period from when it was made is also a time in that company's sort of production history that I think is really fascinating, because they were at a very strange crossroads and just did not know what to do and seemed to be like they were flailing, but they were still kind of making money at the same time.
It's happening right now. I think it's interesting because I feel like just even right now, I feel like it's a similar thing where they're in a similar space right now.
Yeah.
I think they're in that rebuilding time. So I don't know. I'm that nerd that'll go down like the Disney deep dives on Defunctland and all that kind of good stuff on like YouTube and whatnot. And I just am very curious what's going to happen with Disney right now in the midst of like, you know, post whatever writer strikes and actor strikes and all the stuff that's happening at the moment. Because they're in a transition again where like all the like last few like animated things that they've done have not done well. You know, nothing has been really meeting projections, and because they were trying to do something different than what they've normally done. And so it's like, what are they going to ultimately learn and what are they going to come up with next? Because mostly they've just bought market share for the last like 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's been quite a while since they've had a Frozen.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like a sensation, you know?
Yeah, it's been a decade.
Yeah. So wild time.
I don't know. I think it's a time capsule, but I can't imagine this movie resonates with anybody now. It's such a weird mashup of like ideas and tones and themes and like genres that just don't work together, despite the fact that like everyone's doing their best.
Yeah, it's definitely 100% a nostalgia piece for a certain for a certain
nostalgia
set.
And gateway drug. Yeah,
like we are right in that wheelhouse as we remember it from the home video period. You know, and like, you know, it's just, we've got different perspectives on it, but we definitely remember it. And it's a thing that resonates in some way, just different ways for, you know, the three of us. It's just, it's a fascinating movie. That's just not terribly interesting to watch.
Yeah. I don't think it holds up now, but I also don't think it held up very well then either. So it's kind of like it did what it was supposed to do.
It scared the crap out of me as a kid. And that's what it was supposed to do. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely of that, like, weirdo, like experimental period. Like this movie and I think maybe Condor Man are like the two
That's
movies.
The other one that I always remember. Condor Man.
I loved Condor Man, and I rented that so much. Video Dollar Day, shout out in Vista, California. That was my video store. I used to rent that, both of these, like, but Condor Man especially quite often. Oh my God.
They're just kind of like forgotten, but there's other movies of the period that they were trying out that definitely worked better in terms of box office and also review. Like, you know, Tron was a terrible commercial failure for them, but fucking everybody loves that movie.
And it still has like, you know, a beloved space and you know, in culture as well. And
yeah, they just launched a ride at the Magic
I heard
Kingdom.
It's one of the best rides as well. I heard it's you get on there, it's like you get on the bikes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
like a year or two ago. It's new. So they're still, you know, using that IP, even like part of like, I just went to Taylor Swift's Eras tour. Yes. I'll admit it. I'm actually in the closing credits because I got like, they stopped me because my outfit was cute before the show. So I'm in the like freaking immortalized in the Eras video. But even in her concert, she has a thing that looks like the Tron bikes. Like I was like, holy crap, they're still like checking Tron like to this day. You know what I mean? Though, like within culture. So I think there's something about that
because of nostalgia. I think once our generation kind of ages out, nobody will remember these.
No.
Which is, I don't know, maybe it's for the best. It's like it's
I
from
think
a
it's
weird
okay,
period.
it's a weird period, but I feel like a lot of our creators right now, obviously, like, this was a touchstone for us.
Yeah. Yep. So, Teri, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we had you on to talk this movie, because we intended.
You did not want to talk about this movie, I guess.
We intended
I really did want to talk about this movie. It was only after I watched it that I was like, well, there's just not much to say about it.
Yep.
It just is what it is.
No, but I'm glad we had your perspective on it. Balance things out a little bit.
Yeah, someone's got to love it. Someone's got to love it in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, hey, where can everybody find you? What are you up to?
I'm just hanging out right now, not talking about struck work, but you can find me on the internet at the Teri Gamble, most places, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TeriGamble.com. That's Teri with one R, Teri, Gamble like Las Vegas. I do an amazing show that you guys know about with Julia, who you've had on your show already as well.
Yep.
The amazing Julia Marquesi, my best friend of a million years. We actually met on the airplane on our way to England. So this movie has a near and dear heart. We did our year abroad together. We studied together. That's how we met. So whenever stuff is British, I'm always just like, ooh. So that's probably also why I love this movie, because it's got that weird, like, American trapped in Britain vibe to it, which I can definitely relate to.
Yep.
Feeling loud and obnoxious compared to all of them. And I think that could be also maybe the direction, because I feel like that happens a lot. They're like, y'all are really loud. Yes, we are. We have more space to be heard. You can, find me there. Horror Movie Survival Guide, weekly podcast. We have over 300 episodes, lots of great interviews. We have a Joe Lynch interview that's just coming out for Suitable Flesh. And we just talked with Dennis Paoli as well. Stuart Gordon's wonderful, who wrote The Reanimator and From Beyond, and lots of fun stuff. I feel like and Garf Horror X with the George A. Romero Foundation. We had a new show that's on the Garf Network via YouTube that just started. We had a couple of interviews that are already up with Lori Cardill, amazing, from Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead.
Just a badass, and just what a wonderful, kind woman. And then our second interview just came out recently with Chelsea Stardust. So check that out. Amazing, fun conversation with her. Our show is focused all about women and femmes in horror. And I feel like there's more stuff, but that's probably good for now, right? Yeah.
Not bad. You're very busy. All right. So, that was it. The Watcher in the Woods. We'll see you back here in another week with our teardown of Elves.
Ooh.